G'day guys, Josh Huggett here from Joshua Huggett Media, and welcome to Tog Talk, a weekly segment where we talk about all things wedding photography and just photography in general, really. This week we're talking to Wes Shin, and he is just ridiculously creative. Some of the photos that he takes blow my freaking mind away. He just posted one the other day of like this sunset reflection thing that he was doing. So good. So if you don't follow Wes, make sure that you do. But we talk a lot about how he goes like the extra mile to get those photos. Like he'll go on like a 3-hour hike for an engagement shoot just to get some stupidly good photos for his couples. We also talk about how he was in the military and he did like military photography, and he was a photojournalist, and a bunch of really interesting stuff. So jump on in, get a coffee. Red Bull, if you want to sponsor me, get a Red Bull. But sit down, let's talk to Wes, and it's so fucking good. You're gonna love it. Welcome, Wes. Welcome to Tog Talk. Just tell everybody that's watching this that doesn't know that you just got picked for one of the best wedding photos in the entire world, who you are, and what you do, and then we'll go into Africa again. And I want way more detail because I don't think anybody has ever been to Africa other than you that I know of.
Yeah. So you, I guess you want me to introduce myself a little bit here.
That's probably best, yeah.
Yeah. So my name's Wes. Which is whether I was in South America or Africa, for some reason it's really hard for people to pronounce Wes. Wes. I said that like a million times everywhere he went. But I've been a professional photographer for about 20 years, I guess now. So I actually went to college for film in 2004, and that's what kind of got me into this track. And then was a military photojournalist for 10 years after I finished college, and then left that specific career track, and then I've been freelancing for the last 10 years. So I guess right around shooting weddings 7-8 years now, and I think I've shot around 315 weddings or so.
Jesus.
And so it's that's a lot of fun, I think. Well, one thing I always tell like couples that book me, I think anyone that does it this long, you have to really care a good amount for doing this, because there's the burnout factors, getting tired, and like let's go do on something else. So I think there's still that drive and still that motivation to do well, even for, that's weird to say this, but for doing this so long. So
I saw something the other day, I think it might have been yesterday, I saw it on Facebook, and it was like most photographers burn out within like 4 to 5 years, and that's kind of like when they'll change and they'll pick a different type of photography or a different sort of career. You kind of doubled that. But so when you were taking photos in the military, what are you photographing? Just like what's happening?
So and I think that's a really good question, because much of the way and style I capture now for weddings, of course, like going to like school and everything helps, and I'm not, you can learn so much out of school and so much in school. So this kind of depends on people's learning abilities. But I remember showing up for a boot camp in the military, and rolling in and going past the guard gate, and like the drill sergeants come on the bus and they start screaming and everything like that. And I'm looking around and I'm like, man, where's the exit? How do I get off this thing? But I think it was such a wonderful thing for me, because I was, before I went in, I was like a typical teenager, immature, cocky, full of ego, full of pride, all that sort of stuff. And I think going through the military really honed in on what it really meant to be doing things out of honor and integrity and service, no matter who it was per se, but just doing things right and an honorable way. So, but in my time doing a military photojournalism, I was a true photojournalist. I would get deployed. So I sailed both the entire Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. I not only took photos, but I wrote stories as well. So I was part photographer, part writer, but then I also did crisis communications too. So like for example, I um, uh, natural disasters, the oil spill down in the Gulf of Mexico, countless hurricanes and earthquakes and hazardous material spills from like train derailments and so forth like that, and boat groundings, oil spills from ships, all that sort of thing. So I would typically respond to that, both like domestic here in the U.S. and abroad, internationally too. And so got to do some really fun exercises at the time when I was in. We were a little bit closer with Russia, so I got to do some joint exercises with Russians, which was entertaining and fun. Um, but yeah, so that kind of explained, I guess, a little bit of my military photojournalism side.
Did you do
Um,
any on your deployments? Did you go and do any like actual combat based photography as well? Did you get too close to the front line, or you more? Did you stick to that sort of like disaster line?
yeah, so I was like in a particular unit where um, actually, I still live, like, I live just down the road from, I'm still here in the area from where I originally came to do the training and everything. So, um, but I was a part of like a special trained unit where like we were basically trained to do everything. So everything from crisis communications, uh, so my let me rewind a little bit here. I was trained to be a military photojournalist, crisis communications, public affairs writer. But not only that, I was also trained to, perform and conduct weapons. And so there would be training evolutions where I would go and train, not exactly to like the special operators, but I would train alongside them. Um, just because like my role is like a specialist, so like I would be part military photojournalist, part, you know, um, tactical warfare operator sort of thing. And so, I had to be ready. And if things didn't go right, if I was like deployed internationally in South America, in the Middle East, or elsewhere, I knew how to handle myself and knew how to properly handle weapons.
So did you go
So,
through like a full military training? Is that what you're saying? Like you had to go through the full drill sergeant, rolling on the ground, drop and give me 20, shooting guns, just to become like I don't know of any photographers that could pass a physical test. That's why we become photographers, because we're not physical enough to do other stuff.
yeah, so I went through it all. I, went through the whole boot camp military training. The drill instructor was like this close to my face, like, like in there, like yelling and screaming at me. Yeah, I did the whole PT, the physical test, swimming. I'll say like the one thing that I did not do well is the swimming test. Um, I can swim. The issue
Yeah.
was I got a cramp when I was swimming, and so like I didn't drink. I just simply didn't drink enough water, and so part of the swim test for you have to tread water, I think, for 10 minutes. Um, and I think I was at like the 7 minute mark, and I had one of those like cramps that feel like someone just came and punched me in my calf muscle to
Yeah.
the point where like I literally had to like stop, and so I had to do like remedial training and stuff. But um,
Why do you need to be able to tread water for 7 minutes to become a photographer?
well, so I was in like a Navy service, and so like if ship got hit, flipped over, capsized. For whatever reason, I found myself in the water. Like they train us to like survive in the water. So that's like it was just crazy, like going through everything and just the experience of it all and just living it all in person. Well, what is the movie? Full Metal Jacket, I think.
Yeah.
The it's not really. I mean, obviously times have changed a little bit, but that's really still accurate to this day. So that's how it is.
So how do you then pivot from shooting natural disasters, being yelled at by a drill sergeant, treading water for 10 minutes and failing a swimming test, to then weddings, which is quite possibly the most opposite field ever?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question, and I think as I transitioned out of military, the military photojournalism aspect into like, normal civilian life, I honestly like I had friends and stuff that said I should get into wedding photography. But I never really kind of took it seriously. So it wasn't until like I had some friends getting engaged that knew I really liked photography, and they basically just simply were like, "Hey, we know you like photography, and we know you're good at it. Would you want to take pictures of our wedding?" And so that's how it all began. Maybe about 2 years after I got out of the military. And at that point, I was like, I had that kind of like, that itch, of like, hey, I think I kind of like this. And so I started
All
trying
it
to
takes is
figure
like
out.
2 weddings, and you can either figure out if you love wedding photography or you hate wedding photography. And you either go one of two ways.
Yeah. Um, and you're 100% right. And like, or the weddings, uh, they're like any other. At the time, they were great. I took great photos for the couples. I'm still friends with them, and they follow me, and surely they'll probably watch this video. But I think that at the time when you're first starting into the wedding industry, they're not like they're something you initially put on your portfolio, but not now. And
Yeah.
so, I think more importantly out of that, I got the understanding of what it takes to be a wedding photography, and that like I was talking about earlier about understanding the value of importance of like integrity, honor, and like good work ethics. I kind of got that itch, and I guess I wanted more of that, and I really enjoy it. And it is a lot of work. I'm not gonna lie. Like doing this wedding photography thing, it's long hours, long conversations, constant emails that you can never really get away from. So, in many ways, like the whole, because a lot of the dialogue that we have, like people see the photos that we take, but the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, like the emails, the conversations, the dialogue with the couples, like that's really where like a good percentage of the hard work goes in. And for me and my military background and learning about crisis communication and understanding and managing expectations and communicating properly, I think that's where everything kind of started to like mesh together or converge together. Um, so yeah, so I think maybe that was kind of a long-winded answer, but there wasn't really like a quick transition, but I think in year one I shot like two weddings, and then the next year I shot like 10 weddings, and so things just kind of started to build up from that point, and
What
so
were you using for marketing in those first few years? Because a lot of people that will probably listen to this are still at that beginning stage. Like, I know I started very, very similar to yourself. I shot like one wedding for free for my auntie's friend, and then I shot like 2 weddings in my first year, and then the next year was like 15 weddings, and then it was 30 weddings, and now we're doing like 120. What were you doing in those first few years to really like get your name out there, to get that 10 to 15 to then just keep escalating?
Yeah, that's a another solid question. I think, and even like it wasn't that long ago, but like, technology's definitely changed over the years because there's all sorts of stuff that you can do out there with like social media ads and YouTube was big then, but it was a little bit different than what it is now. And Instagram, and you got the reels and the stories and everything like that for sure. But to be honest, like my out of everything that I do, all of like the I don't know if you can call it like advertising, but my approach is a little bit different than like most other photographers. I'm very relational, so like I know there's things out there like the Knot, Wedding Wire, and a bunch,
Yeah.
there's a tons out there, but and nothing necessarily against those, but there's nothing that will ever be as good as relationships and referrals. So I think for me, it was understanding the value of, again, going back to like the military training I had of just honor, respect, and working with integrity. If I always felt like if I did that well enough for the couples that I shot their weddings, I knew that maybe they would share that trust they had with me with other people that would get engaged, or friends or family that would get engaged. And so for me, that was the biggest thing, is like just, building trust through relationships. And I'm not extroverted. I'm introverted. So, for me, it is funny when I tell couples that like if it was just me, I would be sitting on the couch watching TV all day. And like shooting weddings isn't, while I love the work, it's when I come home from a wedding day, I feel like I ran like a 26K like marathon. And it's a lot of work, both like mentally and physically. But at the end of the day, I have so much fun doing it because it's never about me, for sure. It's about the couples trusting me to capture their day. But first and foremost, the biggest priority for me is the couple. The couple, I'm there to provide a service, there to honor them. And so the reason I'm saying all of that is that I still, to this day, I have a wedding coming up, and I'm doing the exact same thing every couple, every wedding. That's been my recipe that's worked. And yeah, it does take a little bit more effort to kind of communicate and manage expectations. I'll use this for an example. So where I'm talking about communicating and managing expectations, I shot a wedding last week where like we had it was a different ceremony. Typically, most of our weddings here in the U.S. are like in the afternoon or even evening, but the couple chose to have their wedding ceremony in the morning. So it was a little bit different. I had to kind of change some things I'd normally do. But like right when their ceremony was supposed to start, it rained. And so this is where like I talk about building the relationship, the trust, and everything that comes along with that, because more often than not, when those sort of things happen, couples tend to look at the photographer, even if there's a planner or a coordinator, just because usually we're kind of the most experienced at weddings. And the more seasoned you get as a wedding photographer, I'm not talking to you, but people watching, you'll start to understand the value of that trust. And so when it was time, like, all right, when we were talking about the rain happening, I was just basically like, all right, maybe we should wait like 20-25 minutes or something like that until, because it was this short rain cloud. And everyone was pretty chill about it. It was pretty relaxed. And sure enough, it stopped raining in like, I think even like 15 minutes. And then we just got on with the ceremony. And everything was fine. But that just comes into that trust factor of like managing expectations. Hey, it might rain, and that's the whole relational piece that I was, been talking about. So yeah.
So, how do you find? I've been very excited for this because we met in Peru, and you are a very introverted person, which is why I wanted this conversation so much because I had Justin on yesterday, and he's extroverted. I'm an introverted person, but when I go to a wedding or work, I turn on extroverted Josh. As a true introvert, that even when shooting, because there's that video I posted of both of us sitting next to each other when we were in Peru, and we both call out the same photo pose at the same time when they turn and face each other. And my voice was just like 6 times louder than yours. How do you then, whilst being, a true introvert and being so much more kind of like relaxed and calmer in those situations where it does start raining or everybody turns to the photographer or even something as little as like family photos, how do you then like assert yourself whilst still being like an introvert?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think like, having a good personality and not being boring, I think is important too, because I never take myself too seriously, and I think that's like the only rule that I have for any couple is just have fun, and that's it.
Yeah.
Um, so even with being introverted, um, there's moments where I don't ask me to do it like forcefully, but um, uh, I have dad puns, so it's like it's a disease basically. So typically on a wedding day, if like things aren't going right, or I kind of read the room a little bit to make sure I can start cracking jokes, but start cracking jokes with like family members, parents, or the bride and groom to kind of calm them down a little bit. But understanding the personalities, because everyone's got different personalities too. So, um, but kind of just reading the room, making sure like I kind of understand where people are at. But if I need to assert myself, it's not something that is like I would say like natural, but something that I can definitely force myself into doing when I need to, so I can be extroverted when I have to. I can definitely do that, but that's when I start to get like really drained from that
Yeah.
point.
Do you find that your ability to take photos more invertly? Do you find that being quieter makes it? Is that's come from your like photojournalistic background that you're able to still capture those moments and like some of the photos that you take are just fucking stupidly good, stupidly good. Do you find that's from that photojournalistic background where you are just really documenting what's happening? That's like being a photojournalist in my mind is you're staying back, you just kind of take photos of what's going around you. Are you then like using that same brain, same thought wave when taking those wedding photos? Because some of the candid moments that you capture are just stupidly good. That photo of the dad crying, done. Like how do you take such good photos, Wes?
Um, I think it's uh, that's a very good question. Let me see if I can. I think I started getting into like the whole cinema, like photography thing when I was 8 years old. And this stems like going way back into my childhood here, where like I was 8 years old. I was really into like the old school James Bond movies, and the old school like Star Wars movies from like the 80s and everything like that. And I remember like when I was watching those movies, it just opened up my world to just I just thought those were amazing, and I really loved that. And the reason I'm saying that is because I'm a very visual person. Like I was never really good in academics at all. High school, my grades were horrible. I got through college okay. But I wouldn't necessarily say I'm like book smart, but like visually, I just notice everything. So I'm always like visually aware of like what's going on. Um, so like through I guess my introverted personality, I'm paying attention to like interactions between how couples are looking at each other. So I might not be saying anything as I'm walking with the couples, but I'm looking at how they're holding hands or how they're making eye contact or not even holding hands, but how they're kind of just nudging each other. Because every couple has like these nuances that's a little bit different, and so I'm paying attention to that, and then from that I'm able to, just from experience of just shooting weddings so long, incorporate those little nuances and how they love each other. Because I've had couples that are perfectly fine, like not like no physical contact. Um, but I still work through that and understanding what they like and don't like, and I still incorporate that their love in a tangible form that works for them. And so none of my photos are ever posed. I don't believe in that at all. All of my shots are 100% natural movement, just talking to them as they embrace each other, and again, every couple's a little bit different. So as a couple embraces each other, whether it's the woman kind of putting her hand on the chin here, or the neck, or even the back of the head, I always try to make it look as natural as possible, where couples are just have their hands on each other. So uh, being able to kind of sit back, even though I'm like introverted, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm not paying attention. I'm paying attention even more, because when it's time to talk, they're actually going to listen to me and understand where I'm coming from. And I think you know um, I have friends that are super extroverted and just don't stop talking.
Yeah, that's how I
and
run my wedding days.
yeah, so, and I think that you know I prefer to kind of talk when necessary, and I think that plays an important role when being a wedding photographer, because if you're just talking like nonstop, you know, I think it's going to be a little bit, I don't want to say like difficult, but it'll be like challenging to try to engage with a couple and talk to them during an engagement session or a wedding. Whereas if you're listening to them, and this goes back to what I said earlier about being a wedding photographer. It's never really about us. It's about who we're taking pictures of. And so understanding the couple and where they're from and what they do and how they met, and what it felt like when they met, what it felt like when he asked the question, or did either of them cry, and so on. So because the thing is, everyone likes talking about themselves, and I think that's the biggest thing that any photographer should know, is like, especially for weddings, is like the more you can learn and listen from a couple, uh, the more your photos are going to be, because you're actually getting them to talk about themselves, and you should be writing notes, or recording it, or doing whatever you can to kind of incorporate that into your photos. So that's just, I know it's kind of a long-winded answer again.
So what sort of couples? So I find with my couples, because I talk a lot, and the reason that I talk a lot during my sessions is because as soon as there's sort of like no talking, my couples become a bit, whereas like if I was to kind of, leave them to their own devices and be like, hey, go over there and touch each other, it doesn't really work as well as like, the way I work is I'll tell stories. Like I'm a big storyteller through the whole photo session. So we'll meet up in the car park or wherever we're doing the engagement shoot, for argument's sake, and I'll talk through the whole engagement shoot. But while I'm talking through the engagement shoot, I'm telling my stories. I'm telling, what I'm doing while I'm doing it. I'm showing photos on the back of the camera, like, look at how good you look. Great, let's go over here and do this. The last time I was here, I did X, Y, and Z. But while I'm telling those stories, I'm looking for the ways, just like you said, how you look at how they touch each other, and, maybe she rests her head on his shoulder and she feels comfortable there, or maybe they always hold hands in like a certain way, like maybe she's like cuddling up this way. I'm keeping an eye out for those sorts of things so I can incorporate those into my photos later. Are your couples then more comfortable to be kind of like left to their own devices?
Yeah, and I actually asked him that. That's a good question. I ask before the engagement session, before the wedding. Like I make sure I ask what, because every couple's, that everyone's got a different love story. Everyone's unique for sure. But the big thing I want to understand is because I definitely have that creative photo side, and I wanted to try to share my screen here. I want to give this a go. See if I can. Here we go. Okay, I got it. All right. So, can you see my screen here?
Yes, I can.
Okay, cool. So like this was a good example of like asking these guys if they want to create a photos, and I'll ask that. I'll be like, do you want the creative photos, or do you want like fun cutesy photos, or what is it that like kind of speaks to you guys? Because I don't want to capture it the way I want to capture it. I want to capture it the way they foresee their love for each other. And so, there's things that I'll do. I'll have them go on like Pinterest, make a Pinterest board, and kind of just kind of show me photos that they like.
So you would change almost your photo style to match the couples that are booking.
Right. So I am a big I've been doing this for 20 years, and so like it doesn't really. I like the ability to shoot in pretty much any setting.
Is that a phone? That one there? Is that a phone reflection?
Oh, yeah. So this is was an absolutely perfect day, and so yeah, I saw the tree lined up there, and I've shot weddings here before, and this doesn't always work that well, but the sky has to be just right to do this, and it was just a perfect occasion to do something like that. And these are all photos, like none of these are posed. I'm just telling them like, hey guys, hold hands and walk together here. So there's nothing really like super fancy. This is a drone photo actually. So I'm probably, I don't know, like 50 or 100 meters away from them. I'm a good distance away. And I'm like literally like, they can't hear me. But I just told them like, hey, when you guys see me start waving, just start walking. So, so I'm just kind of going through some. This is again another drone photo. So these sort of shots of kind of, and that this is just being ready for the moment. I saw her kind of. I thought she was gonna do that, and sure enough, like as my brain was processing that, literally like a second later, she got on the floor, and I was able to grab this. So
with this, I can see a solid light up here in the corner. It won't record my screen, but there's a solid light up there. Or is that an off-camera flash?
Yeah. So for my reception, let me see if I have it. Let me rewind a little bit here. Hang on. So this shot. So for my receptions, I typically have anywhere from like 4 to 6 lights lighting up a reception.
This is two big light. I spoke with Justin yesterday, Justin Benson, and we talked a lot about flash. So this is two big flash chats in a row, because I don't use a flash at all. I use the Godox V1 on the top of my camera. Every now and then I'll set up my AD200, maybe for a creative shot, and that's about it. So you've got 6 lights that you'll bring to a wedding.
Yeah, so I will typically use 6 lights for a reception. I'm trying to scroll through the bottom to see if I have any others. But yeah, so this I know it's a unique angle here, so it's not the whole dance floor, but there's 6 lights that are lighting the bride and groom, and I really like the reception at the table there, so I wanted both, and I felt like that just kind of captured the setting really good. So like I love natural light. I love shooting in natural light for sure. But this is another strobe shot here too.
I reckon I saw the editing of that one when you I think you posted.
Oh yeah. But then this is 100% natural light. Um, you know, there's this is all naturally lit. I just put them in the right spot. Um, I live in a city where there's a lot of cool like creative like graffiti like that.
Yeah.
So,
Your
uh,
photos are so colorful compared to most other wedding photographers. Like you really have your, like we kind of desaturate a lot of stuff. Not a lot, but yours are so colorful. Like your blue skies are so blue, your reds are so red. Are you finding that people are booking you for those colors? And that's one of the things that they mention when they're inquiring is like, hey, we love the colors of your photos.
yeah, I'll get that. You know, they'll say something. I'll get couples that like kind of value the colors a good bit. That will speak and mention something about the colors, and then I'll get other couples that say something about the style, like how I shoot and like where I shoot. Like this is just talking about me and humor.
Mm,
This is at a place called Dinosaur Land, which is exactly what you think it would be.
the land of
Um,
dinosaurs.
yeah, and so kind of using this as an example, like I saw this and I'm like, all right, guys, I put up a bit. There's one strobe that's lighting the couple, and I just said, all right, guys, here's the plan. You guys are gonna run from the dinosaurs and act like you're running for your life. Um,
I do a
and
similar thing if I can find like good fun couples that are kind of like there, and I'll very crudely Photoshop things into the background. I've got a fantastic one of my
yeah,
friend Stefan Hayden. Like we're in the forest here in SA, and there's like huge pine trees on either side, and they're running down the middle of the pine trees. And then I said like run like a dragon is attacking you from behind, and then we very
yeah,
crudely Photoshop a dragon in the background. Uh, I went through a whole stage. If people go through like different eras of photography, mine was randomly photoshopping things into the back of engagement photos. Uh, I'm pretty glad I'm out of that stage now. But
yeah. That's fun. It's fun to do fun photos like that. And yeah, I just this was another natural lit shot of the couple. I so sometimes in my photos you'll see uh sometimes photos of couples like on ledges and stuff, and I always safety is a big thing for me. So like no one's gotten hurt yet with me. Um so this is probably like 10 or 15 meters in the air.
so do you
So
have to hike to this location? So are you going, or is there a car park nearby?
no, this was a hike. Um some of the hikes that I go on, they range from like this one was 3 hours. Yeah.
Do you charge for the entire hike? Like we do like an hour long engagement shoot. Are you charging for like a 6 hour engagement shoot?
No, I kind of just factor it into everything.
Yeah.
Plus, like, it's fun. I love doing this. And so,
Well,
you
no one
know,
else would really have this engagement shoot photo, would they? Because no one else would really go on that hike.
yeah. Um, and this is probably, there's one that's a little bit longer, but this is one of the longer hikes where I live. But the view
Mm.
over there was just stunning.
So a location like that, do you scout that location yourself, or is that something that the couples come to you and said, "Hey, we love how good you are at landscape photography. Can you take a photo on the top of this mountain?"
So, yeah, I know I've actually never been to, this is called Mary's Rock. Um, Up until the point where we went there, I never even heard of it. And then they shared it to me like, "Hey, we want to go to Mary's Rock." I'm like, "I have no idea where that is." So like I just went there. I like, I could Google it and kind of get a rough idea of what it looked like. Um, but until I got there, like I literally had no idea what to expect.
Do you find that you the way I run my engagement shoots, again, completely the opposite it seems. I always run mine at the same time, at the same place, at the same location, so that I don't need to think about light, positioning, or anything. I can focus all of my attention on my couple and making sure that they're comfortable. Whereas it seems like you'll just go anywhere and take photos.
Yeah, I love that. I love being able to think on the fly and, pay attention. I tell couples like, "Hey, I might not be talking to you, but I'm constantly looking around at the surroundings and looking at maybe the way the sun is hitting a building with like its shadows or reflection off of like a window or a mirror or the sunset. Now, I typically do all of my engagement sessions at roughly the same time. I mean, we're kind of in the middle of a season change at the moment, but typically most of my sessions are start maybe an hour or two before sunset or golden hour, and
Yep.
then we just shoot right through until I lose all the light, basically.
So yours aren't timed. It's not like you get an hour. At the end of
No,
the hour, you're done. There are lots of
yeah,
people
no,
that'll do that.
yeah, I would if I timed any of these shoots, I wouldn't be able to get photos like this, to be honest, you know. So like if anything was ever timed, um I don't know. I don't want to say I wouldn't get photos, but it would definitely be, I would feel like a lot harder to capture the style that I like to capture if I put like, all right, you guys only got 45 minutes versus
Mm.
like, all right, typically my sessions are around 3 hours, but
Wow.
we don't shoot all that time. So we definitely don't shoot. So don't think we're out shooting the whole. We take breaks. We'll change outfits. So it's not like, I'm not like a drill sergeant. Like let's take pictures now. So we take our time. We pace ourselves and all that sort of stuff. So
So you'll take
yeah,
like a whole afternoon for an engagement shoot.
yeah. With the time change coming up, yeah, for sure. It's starting to end up that way.
We do
Yeah.
ours in an hour. So I schedule all of mine an hour before like Google sunset. So if Google says that it's the sun sets at 6:24, we'll meet up at like 5:30, and then I don't time mine like, oh, it's been 60 minutes, let's get out of here. It's if I get all the photos done in 45 minutes, I've got all the photos done in 45 minutes. If we shoot through, we could be there for like an hour and 20 minutes. That's a sick photo. So I don't really time mine that way, but there's no way that I could go out for like 3 hours and walk around and take photos.
Yeah. It depends on the setting too, for sure. So, cause a lot of times, like if we're going to hike like an epic setting, it's worth it, and I want to make it. If a couple's hiking up a mountain with me for like 3 hours and we're spending pretty much all day together, I want it to be fun, and I don't want it to be rushed because I found from experience, like if you rush things through, it'll it'll kind of distract. And this comes back to one of the things I said earlier about the biggest role being fun for all of my couples.
Mm.
And I want it to be a fun experience. I want it to be a full experience. So we're out shooting a nice ideal weather with partly cloudy skies and a good recipe for a strong golden hour like photo session. And so those two things factor in, and as long as we're in a great location, having fun together, that's like the biggest recipe I could ask for. So
So are you doing, how many weddings are you shooting a year currently?
typically
Do you cap
uh,
it?
let me get back on my screen here. Um, typically this year was kind of a down year. It was a little bit slower, but anywhere from like 20 to like 33 weddings is good for me.
Yeah. Will you
I
cap
do.
it at around that mid-30s mark and not accept any more?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably put a limit. I don't think I would take more than like 35 weddings in a year, because that's intense. That's a big load. And I do all the weddings myself. I don't like associate. I don't have associates or anything like that. So
Do you still do all your own editing as well?
still do all my own editing. I
Have
run
you
it.
outsourced a single aspect of your business yet?
No, but I will say like AI definitely plays a pretty big role. Use the aftershoot setup for culling and editing photos, and I also use Devlip's Things, which is also a color grading system. And I can typically, even though my contract, I think it says like 4 to 6 weeks for like delivery time frame, I typically deliver most of my weddings in like 1 to 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Um, and engagement sessions often even sooner. So
Yeah, my engagement shoots, because so much of my engagement shoot is to my own planning, I can pretty much deliver those like a day or two later, depending if I go straight to bed after the shoot or not. Like if I don't go straight to bed, I could pretty much have that put it into Aftershoot, select a couple of extra bangers, edit it with my profile in Aftershoot, and it would be ready to deliver like literally straight out of Aftershoot. But
Yeah.
sometimes I'll go through and tweak a little bit more, and I'll do a couple of little brushes and
Yeah.
stuff, and that takes a day. But
And that's the thing I was going to mention with AI is like, I don't ever really want to be in a place where like I still love tweaking it. I still love like the editing part, but there's parts that I'm so thankful that we have things like Aftershoot because it eliminates a lot of, and I hate to say this, it eliminates a lot of like the boring. Uh, I can't even remember calling a wedding, to be honest, before Aftershoot and just sitting there with the arrow key
it was the
with my
worst.
coffee. My coffee and here there's no coffee in here, but I would be drinking coffee and pressing the arrow key.
I
And
used to sit in Lightroom and I would rate 1 or 5 stars, and I would just sit there like this and just go for one after another. But I
yeah,
started using. One day I'm going to make one of these episodes, and I'm not going to talk about Aftershoot. I spoke about it very briefly yesterday with Justin, but we talked more about Flash. But I've been using it since 2020 when it first came out, and I genuinely couldn't run without it. But what it does as well is gets rid of, like you said, the boring bit. It does 80% of the edit. Like it makes a base edit on all the photos so that you just have to do the fun stuff. You can
yeah,
just go in and do like just getting rid of brushes or like making it a little bit more moody rather than like, all right, here's a raw image. Let's start from scratch, like apply preset, and then you got to change all your colors and everything.
yeah. And I think that's what I love. Like I love color grading. I think that was my biggest thing in shooting films. Also, is just I just actually wrote a whole article on color and emotional impact colors have. But I think that colors make the world go round. And I know it can be kind of cliche to say, but like there's so much color in life. Even on a rainy day, you can still find ways to pull color out of an image, whether it's through like a couple or something like that. And I think being able to have things like Aftershoot make the base selection and base color grade, and then having that set, so when it's time to come into Lightroom, the white balance and everything is pretty much already like 95% there. And at that point, you can start, kind of manipulating or pulling the most out of the colors. And I hate to mention it, but it's also helpful to have really nice gear and equipment too.
Well, that was actually my next question, is that I want to know what's in your camera bag because you've moved, because you were Canon and now you're a big Fuji boy with your $47,000 camera or whatever it is. But what are you, so you've got 6 lights that you take to a wedding. Are they constant lights or are they flashes?
So I have 2. I don't know. I've never been able to pronounce this brand names out there. So someone out there watching this will probably correct me. But June, the 80 or the 300 watt lights that are constant light. Actually, one of them's lighting me in this video.
I got one there. Oh no, that's a 120. And these
Yeah,
are this is an Amazon one. But
and it's actually really, really nice light output. It's nice, and you can even see it on my face here. This is exactly the light that I'll pack up and bring with me to. Um, for wedding receptions, I have 2 of the June 300 watt lights, and can include links and everything like that. But and then I have 5 80 200 watt lights. And the reason I have 5 is because I always manage to break one once a year. So having a backup light is important. So even though I have 5, I'll probably only use 4. Um, and then I'm a Magmod ambassador, so I have all of the Magmod lighting modifiers and everything like that. But usually I just keep it simple with the lights. Just put like one of the mag spheres on and maybe a gel, and then the camera gears. So that's the everyone always wants to hear. So
well, everybody has such different kit. Everybody brings like, even though we're all doing the same job and we're all trying to get the same thing out of a wedding, which is just fantastic photos for our couples. Everybody does it so differently and brings such different gear. And I can talk about Canon, but like you're a Fuji boy now.
Yeah, so in my career of doing this, filming photography and filmmaking for 20 years, I've shot on Nikon for 10 years as a military photojournalist, or Nikon, however you say it.
We say Nikon here.
Okay, yeah. So, um, I think, yeah. So I shot on that for 10 years. And then I shot on Canon after that for about 3 or 4 years. And then that's when Fujifilm started getting kind of picking up speed and kind of getting popular. So I think I was like, at that point, it was like the X-T3 came out or something like that. And so I shot on the X-T3 for maybe about 2 or 3 years. And then the Canon R5 system came out. And then that's when I sold everything and switched to the Canon R5 system. And I think at the beginning, they only had, like, if I remember right, like 3 lenses or 4 lenses or something.
There wasn't many when it all came out. There was like 85 1.2. There was a 24 1.8. There wasn't much.
Yeah, and so like I think my only lens that I had was a 50, um, and I don't even know if or maybe it was the 15 to 35 was one of the early lenses, I
Mm.
think, and then I had the 24 to 70. Yeah, that's what it was. So that was it. But then later on, I kind of added more lenses and everything like that into the whole Canon R5, ecosystem there. So, um, yeah, shot on Canon the R5 system for about 4 years or so, 3.5 years, and then the Fujifilm. So let me before I started getting into the reason why I switched. I think the reason I wanted to get into medium format photography stems back to me in my childhood of watching like the James Bond movies and the Star Wars movies, and even in today's like the modern cinema movies like Dune, Dune 2, like the sequel, the cinematography in that just blew my mind away. Like, if anyone hasn't seen it, just go watch it for just the cinematography is just out of this world. And so I've always dreamt of being able to capture images like that, right? Just because that's large format that they're shooting on like 55 millimeter sensors. Um, and it's kind of hard to explain, but basically, when the larger the sensor, the more natural it looks for the human eye, and so like there's absolutely nothing wrong with 35 millimeter. But then the difference that starts to take place between 30 like full frame versus like 40, 45, 55 millimeter is the depth of field. Um, and it's even couples that I'm taking pictures of are noticing the difference. They're like, wow, it just looks like it just pops out of the image. So that is the only reason that I wanted to switch in the medium format is the visual storytelling aspect meant that much for me that I really wanted that. That was like a lifelong dream. And so, I would never tell anyone just starting off, go buy, $35,000 worth of camera equipment. But it's something it's like a goal, it's been a long goal of mine. And so being able to switch from the Canon R5 system to the Fuji GFX 100 Mark II, I have two of them, has really opened up a whole new world of being able to capture visuals in a way I've only dreamed of. And I feel like I'm just getting started on that because I've only had the cameras since the beginning of the year, January. And so as I continue to capture engagement sessions and weddings here and to my busy season, it's something that I'm really excited for because even though most of my couples might not fully understand the impact of medium format photography has on what I'm capturing for them, the results are going to be amazing and no matter where I go. So I shoot on the Fuji GFX 100 Mark II camera system, and I have 3 lenses, and that's it. That's all I need. I'm not shooting sports or wildlife. I don't need like a long telephoto lens. So those are fun to rent maybe every once in a while. But I shoot weddings with the Fuji GFX 100 Mark II. Two of the camera bodies. I have the GF 55 1.7, which in the full frame world is a 45 millimeter 1.2 lens. The best lens I've ever shot on in my entire life of doing this for 20 years. Absolutely, you can. It's the master of everything. It can shoot landscapes. It can shoot portraits. It can shoot detail moments, lay flats. It can do. It's really one of the best lenses that can really do it all. Um, and then I have the GF 110 f2, which in the full frame world is a 85 millimeter. I think it's a 1.4 or 1.2. Someone can correct me on that.
Yeah.
But that's it's I've shot on 85s before, but like the level of detail and sharpness on a 100 on the 110 lens is just I call it the money lens because it's just that good. It's the money maker. Like it's when I'm doing like bridal portraits or anything else, the crisp sharpness, even shooting at like f2, is just unreal as far as like the depth of field of separating maybe the couple at a dance doing their first dance and just having a nice moment where it's just like beautiful lighting around them and just them two. And then I have the 20 to 35 millimeter f4, which is like a 2.8 equivalent. That's a 16. It's not exactly like a 16 to 35. I think it's like a 16 to 32 or something like that in the full frame
Yeah.
world. But that's the wide lens that I don't really ever use that much, but it's nice to have in the event that I need to use it. And that's it. That's all my gear.
I just bought a 15 to 35 mil lens, and it's my new favorite lens.
Yeah,
I don't know what's happened. Oh, the 51.2 will always be my favorite lens because I can, like you said, you can just do anything with it. Like 40 would be even nicer, like that, a little bit wider, but
yeah,
at 51.2 I can do bridal portraits, I can do my detail photos, I can do the ceremony, I could shoot a whole wedding on a 51.2, but the 15 is just like being able to get that super wide. I don't know. I think I'm going through a different stage in my career, but I always sat on 24 and I loved the little bit of distortion that the 24 gave.
yeah,
But now with the 15, I'm like, oh no, I love this distortion. I love
yeah.
being able to get that like super wide point of view. I'm just sitting here like this looking like a fucking goldfish, but able to get that super wide, like different look. Yeah, I don't know. Really like it.
It's yeah, no, I think because I would shoot on the 15 to 35 quite often. It's a beautiful lens. And with like the barrel distortion, you can correct that in Lightroom and
Mm,
everything like that. And like it depends on the setting where you're shooting, of course, obviously, but you can get some really, really beautiful like portrait images on that lens too.
yeah. I like getting real close to the couple
Yeah,
and then having the 15 so you can kind of show like the chaos or the beautifulness that's behind and then like them being almost like their entire body.
yeah. I
Yeah.
I would use that when I was shooting on the Canon system for receptions. I would just put on the 15 to 35, shoot wide the whole time, and then that's how you get all the crazy dancing, goofy
Mm.
shots.
That's
Um,
where I got, if anybody's seen my Instagram from a couple of weeks ago, we had some sick dance floor photos and that was taken on the 15.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, the one thing that like it's not it's just a little bit of a learning curve. So the focusing system on the GFX 102 versus the R5 is like I gotta be careful in saying this because Fujifilm people will kill me. Um, so like it's not as good as the R5, but it's like right there. So um, shooting receptions has been a little bit of a learning curve because the eye focus on the GFX is really superb, absolutely stunning. It's ridiculous to think that a camera with that big of a sensor can focus on an eye like as fast as the R5. Receptions get a little bit tricky because of the low light, which is why I use the constant lights. Um, because I know if I didn't use the constant lights, it would be a struggle to focus at receptions. And so shooting on the constant lights allows my camera systems to not have to work so much.
Have you had any couples say anything about you bringing in constant lights? Like they set up a venue to look a certain way and then you bring in your own lights?
No, I'll tell them, and they know from like my photos and stuff too. But I'll tell them like, hey, I'm bringing in lights. They're gonna be aimed directly at the dance floor. If it gets crazy, I'm gonna start putting on gels and purples and whatever other colors look fun and everything like that. But no one um, has ever said anything about the lights. Sometimes they'll want to dim the lights a little bit, so I'll kind of work like a happy medium and kind of dim the lights if they're a little bit too bright and like maybe guests want it to be a little bit darker. I'll work with them on that. But no one's really said anything about the lights in particular. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to plug? Is there anything interesting that you're doing at the moment? Instagram, website, anything fun that's happening?
I'm approaching my busiest season of the year for the next 3 months.
So your season's very similar to ours.
Yeah. So, even though I've had to reschedule 2 engagement sessions this week because it's been raining, but I'm basically either have 2 engagement sessions. I have at least 2 shoots every week for the next like 11 or 12 weeks. So, for those people out there interested in following me, I'll be posting a lot, and I'm trying to eventually get one of those nice 360 cams like you have, so I can post some cool. I'm really wanting to get one of those. So hopefully
it just makes it so easy. It makes getting behind the scenes content so much easier because it just records everything all of the time.
I love watching your videos because it's just like I'm like, man, I really want one of those because it's so cool because you just see so much going on, and it's just cool to just be able to show a lot of behind the scenes, because a lot of the time, like I'll just post, shoot stuff on my phone, but it's not the same as just like putting the 360 cam somewhere on me and then just, focusing on shooting all that sort of stuff. So
I literally start the photo session, I hit record, and then at the end of the photo session, I stop recording, and that's it. And then I'll come back, and that's what I'm going to do after this, is I'm going to go through. I've got like 4 hours worth of footage to go through. Yeah. And you just sit through, and like you'll remember this photo. The earlier that you do it after the session, you'll remember the fun bits that happen. So you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. That's when we took this photo. So you can kind of like skip through to there, and it cuts down on the time. But like if you shoot a wedding and film a whole bunch of content and then don't edit that for like 3 weeks, like you'll forget what's actually happened. And then you have to sit down and watch you work for like 2 hours, and that's strenuous.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming on to Tog Talk, Wes. It's been an absolute delight. I've been looking forward to this one because we haven't spoken since since Peru.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to stop this recording. See what I mean? The photos that he takes are just so good. Anyway, thanks so much for listening to or watching Tog Talk wherever you're watching this. If you are listening to it on Spotify, then come over to the YouTube channel as well, because we do. It's quite a visual show that we have here. It's not a podcast. It's still not a podcast. If you'd like to come on Tog Talk, you're more than welcome to come on. We do have an open forum here, so wherever you're at in your wedding photography business or your photography business in general, I feel like you've always got something that you can teach somebody that's maybe 1 or 2 steps behind you. So if there's something you want to come on and have a chat about, or even just have a chat in general, or some people, like next week, they've come on just to get some advice from me about their business. They're starting out. They've been doing events for like 14 years, and now they're coming on to start as full-time wedding photographers. So they're looking for some business advice. So next week is a lot more of me talking about business. But if you'd like to come on and have a chat, come on in. Find the Calendly link in our Patreon or on our Facebook group. But until then, I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye. Love ya.